So we've started a little group. We're going to try to do a little blog here for you called Tap Into the Truth. And the TAP stands for Tammy, Anita, and Pam. So we've been working together on books and conspiracy theories and general nonsense for
at least 4 years.
Yeah, it's been 4 years?
It's been about 4 years.
All right.
Yeah.
I suppose it would probably have been a good idea for us to actually have a picture of the books that we write.
We can add that.
We can. All right. Well, anyway.
The magic of video.
The magic of video. For the magic of video, our books will suddenly appear as we say this. So we're all authors.
Yeah, I write romance suspense mostly, based in Burlington, Wisconsin. I also just released my first conspiracy thriller called Veritas. I'm super excited about that one.
I'm super excited about it too.
Yes, and I thank Pam and Myron a lot for keeping me on schedule with that one, because there is rumors in the conspiracy world that something big's about to drop. And I really needed that information out there before whatever is going to drop happens.
Right.
So
I like to say it's her baby, but I'm the proud auntie.
She sure is the proud aunt. She's the crazy aunt that kept it all together.
I am the crazy aunt. Everywhere I go, even in the writing world, I'm the crazy aunt. You have no idea how happy that will make people that actually know me.
Two crazy aunts.
All right, two crazy aunts. And they're awesome little babies.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, Anita. Oh, Anita's got a safety trick.
Okay.
My stuff is way out there.
Wow. That tells me something.
I didn't know it was a contest. I can amp it up.
Okay. Science, religion, and spirituality. But it goes way beyond that. I have 4 books out. I'm working on a 5th book, and a 6th, and a 7th. My first book is The Primordial Language. Second book is In Search of the Holy Language. Third book is Beyond the Bible Code. Fourth book is Incredible Secrets of Scripture Unlocked. And 5th one, still in the process. So my books deal with a mathematical unit that's found in the natural world. And that is the Fibonacci sequence that feeds into the golden ratio. And it's basically when the next branch on a tree is going to grow. So with that, I sought to seek a common denominator to link both the natural world, science, and religion together to find that common denominator. And I found that there's the mathematical unit that's found in the natural world actually produces this spiral form, which produces every single letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So it's not only intelligent design, but it's divine design. That's the basis of basically all my books at the previous moment. Each one deals with a little something, goes into a different kind of tangents. But that's basically the basis of what my books are about.
And the one that we are currently working on to fit into our series, The Truth Seekers?
Yes, Blood Prophecy. It's going to be a conspiracy thriller. It's a good one.
Yes. yes. Excited.
I'm Pam. I have one book. I'm the baby. I have one book out. It's called 13 Voyage of the Indigo Children. It's a young adult read that's basically about 2 kids in Arizona that find a crystal, and through a series of events lands them at the pyramids, and they use it to reactivate an old energy field that existed at the time of Atlantis and Lemuria. So there's a lot of different research that I had done just overall in my life. It started out when I was in studying for art history in college, and I could not make sense of all of the artifacts that I had and what location they came from. Because when I laid them all out, they looked similar. Like, this is supposed to be Australian, but it looks like it could be Mayan, so I don't know how I'm supposed to study for this because it all looks the same to me. So it started to occur to me that maybe they are all the same. And so that kind of led me down, a path of how can we know for sure? Are we sure that there wasn't communication? What about Atlantis? What if it's true? Go find out that it's not. And I think in a lot of our research, what we end up is we try to go disprove it.
Yes.
you know, our ultimate goal is to prove that it's bunk. To take a theory and go, oh, that's flat Earth, that's stupid.
Right.
I'm going to find a way to prove that it's ridiculous. And more often than not lately,
we end up with questions.
We find out that it's way not as ridiculous as even we had kind of hoped it was. And there's been some topics that we've actually said to each other, okay, listen, there is no way that this is real.
Get out the tin foil and the Kool-Aid.
Like, yes, this one is going to blow the doors off your mind. And
yeah.
it's terrifying, it's intimidating, and I think for a lot of people, any sort of truth that goes against what makes you feel comfortable and familiar and at peace with what you have decided is your safety net, your religion, your family, your cultural experience, I think anything that goes against that naturally makes you feel uneasy because the unknown is terrifying. And I don't think that it's bad, I just think that it's unknown.
But, you know, most people do not want to have that uncomfortableness. It's a physical and mental discomfort, and nobody wants discomfort. But that brings us to our topic for the day.
Well, they say the universe will make you most uncomfortable when it's time to grow.
Right. Right.
So you're uncomfortable as a toddler walking around smashing your face into tables, but no one stops you from doing it because you got to learn how to walk. And it's kind of that same basic principle.
Pretty much.
Little juvenile description of it, but you know, every time the universe makes you uncomfortable, it's time to grow, right, Anita?
Isn't that what you told me? You told me that
I do
life is that life is that way, and that's the way the universe works. And you have to jump in the water, and whether we like it or not, we have to learn to swim.
Right. Yep. I mean, you can sink if you want, but your option is to learn to swim, and you will never be your better self if you don't embrace the uncomfortableness, and the only way out is through. You can avoid it, but the universe will keep sending it back to you. And all of us have learned this lesson on some level at some point.
Right. Because there's no cheating. There's no cheating.
No, it's just going to keep reminding you of the same.
Yep.
And so along those lines, there's, you know, the theory that being uncomfortable is not a place we want to be. And so what we do is, instead of choosing to go through the uncomfortable and learn what's next, we stop where we are and go, nope, I'm good.
Or you try to go around it, and there's no going around it.
Right, don't disrupt my happy place.
Right.
I'm good. I'm going to go around it or avoid it, and it doesn't work. And that's the same way with ideas. When we go looking for something that we try to disprove, and we find out that it's way less disprovable than we thought.
Oh, I end up going down these rabbit holes. The doors that open, and the depth of some of the craziness, and I find myself amazed at how it all links together. Eventually. But it's extremely time consuming. I mean, I haven't written anything. This is 4 years. It's been 4 years since I published a book. So Veritas is the first book in 4 years that I actually published.
But this one is based on a lot of factual information. So you get, I think, to do way more intricate research. Not more research, just more detailed research.
Right. And the interesting part about this story is I started this research in 2010. I actually flew to Washington, D.C., spent time out there working on research, and I wanted to write a book that related to something entirely different, but in the end it really wasn't different. It was a key factor that eventually made its way back around. But the main subject matter of my book ended up being the Gemstone Files, because I started searching for a background character or I should say background for a character that was prevalent in this story, and I made JFK Jr. her best friend, so therefore I had to research JFK Jr. In doing so, I found his plane crash fascinating. And so I started digging into his plane crash and everything leading up to that plane crash and the aftermath. And the fact that there are files that aren't even going to be available to the public until 2029. He died in 1999. Why? So I started asking myself all these questions. And so my research obviously did a 180, and I started going down this path. and found that the gemstone files was the key. That was the pivotal point that I really needed to do this book on. So all the research that I had been doing actually were parts of the gemstone file, and I had no idea. It was that awakening moment that I'm going, oh my God. I had no idea. I mean, I never even heard of the gemstone file till I started digging into JFK Jr.'s plane crash.
Well, and the only way you would follow that road, even when it got crazy, when you were like, okay, this can't be right,
Right.
is if you have the willingness to just believe the facts as they're presented to you, and to not say that it makes me uncomfortable, I'm not going to look into it, it can't be. And that's one of the things that we wanted to talk about was cognitive dissonance.
Right.
It's a big word. I actually hate it. I wish there was something else, but there's not. So what it means is that you are so ingrained in your core beliefs that when you're presented with information, no matter how reliable, no matter how provable, no matter how much information and facts are presented to you that counteracts what you believe, your core belief, you will absolutely, unequivocally not accept it.
Yes, there was actually a psychiatrist that wrote about it. There was a book he wrote in 1957, Leon, what is his name?
I don't know, we'll look it up and put it underneath.
Yeah, anyway.
Good old Leon's going to show up.
Leon, 1957, psychiatrist, okay. Anyway, but that's why releasing this book, I put out there, what if everything you were ever told was a lie? Because you literally start having to ask yourself. Now, when I was growing up, my parents always told me to question everything. Question everything. Question authority, question the law, question everything. Because you can't go through life with blinders on. You can't be spoon-fed information. You can, but then you're not going to be aware of what's really going on around you.
So you will be comfortable, but you'll never grow
You'll be
up.
comfortable, but you'll never grow up. And I think that's what a lot of the problem in today's world or society is, that they're spoon-fed so much information. And they're being told what to think, how to feel. They don't know, when they start having emotions or thought, they don't know what to do with it, and they react badly. They don't know how to behave. They don't know how to go about actual growth within themselves and their surroundings. And in order, you can't just, it amazes me how people are just comfortable and they don't want to be anything more than that.
Well, I think because there is a lot of teaching that if you create an uncomfortable situation, there's something bad about it. There's something bad about don't make me uncomfortable. Don't don't rock the apple cart, don't rock the boat, don't mess with the apple cart, don't don't make waves. There is something that I think underlying that says, I always used to laugh when we went to grade school together, which was run like a Catholic school, it was a public school.
It was
not a public
very
school.
strict, yeah.
And it always, it was always, they would say to you, we want to inspire you, and we want you to be creative and independent, as long as you conform while you're doing it.
Yes.
Please follow this regimented rule while you're trying to be creative.
Follow the dotted line, and don't veer either way off the
So clearly we got that message, I think. I mean, I don't know about maybe the conforming part, but we got the creative part.
I have always been a non-conformist, and I think I'm quite comfortable being a non-conformist.
Yeah.
I was always the silent but deadly.
I can see that.
Yeah.
You are like a sleeper cell.
Yeah, you kind of are.
She is. She's a sleeper cell.
You're very quiet, but all of a sudden these words of wisdom come to light, and you're just like, damn.
No, when she gets on a roll though,
I know.
She's like magical. You just sit back and go, ooh, I think some of that fancy got on me.
A little tingly today. Yeah. Okay.
So as you were saying.
So we start with cognitive dissonance because some of the stuff that we're going to say to you, I'm not sure we wholeheartedly believe it. We're going to talk about stuff that we don't necessarily wholeheartedly believe.
Sure.
But I think
it's fun to talk about.
is that it has to be considered.
Yes.
Because I think what you've learned in your research, and interestingly enough, as different as our books are. The one I'm currently working on for my conspiracy theory isn't that different. It's MK Ultra, which kind of is linked to everything. But even though we're working on different work, it relates to each other. Her information about how science and frequency and the holy language and prophecy, and this one and her knowledge on prophecy is like my lifeline. I'm like, what? Anita, this is what happened.
Phone a friend.
Yeah, she's like the wants to be a millionaire of prophecy. Well, I'm sure you probably have a life, but hey, this just happened. You know?
Yes, that's true, but
Yeah. So,
And I hope I don't ever offend.
no, we don't take it that way.
no, I mean, what are you gonna do? Offend me with the facts? Oh, and that's part of cognitive dissonance. I'm offended by that. Well, you're offended by what the information I've presented? Then why ask me for it?
Well, and your perception of something is not my problem. How
Right.
you perceive the truth or the lies, that's on you.
And you know what happens when you're offended?
Nothing.
Nothing
happens if
Just so
you're
you
offended.
know, if you're offended, you know what happens? Watch. Nothing happens.
Please be offended.
Just
Okay.
move on with the rest of your life for love of God. So,
Yes.
so it's interesting because even though we research different things, we have
Yeah.
found that, and we were talking about this the other day, we have found that somehow they are linked.
They are, because I remember going through my research, MK Ultra information, and it might not be the MK Ultra programming itself, but maybe the start or the history or those that, like the granddaddy that started all this, that information started popping up. So I'm like saving things to a file for this is for Pam, this is for Pam, oh, this one's for Anita, and just like when Anita was working on stuff, it came up, Pam needs this information.
Right, and we were talking about, what is that called, particle
Entanglement.
entanglement. So
yeah.
explain particle entanglement, because you can and I can't.
It's kind of related in with quantum mechanics. Basically, it's the science that tells us that one particle is connected to the other particle no matter how far the distance apart.
And they've done experiments with this.
Yes. And so quantum mechanics kind of fits into the same scheme of things, because when you try and measure where that one particle is, it's kind of like a fuzzy, it bounces all around the place, so it has no definite location, which is called non-locality. So it could really be everywhere. So that's particle entanglement. And then quantum mechanics fits into that too, because you have particles that are all over the place. You have a particle and you can't measure it where it is exactly, because it bounces around, and so it has many states, and it could be in a state of non-locality, which means it could be everywhere, and it's actually the technology that our cell phones work on. The same technology. And our remote controls to our TVs.
How so?
Well, I'm not exactly sure on how that technology works. I just know that it works in the same similar way because it's non-locale, which means that you can't...
It doesn't have to have a static point of operation.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, in a sense, we have particle entanglement, but then the question becomes, is that holographic in nature? It goes way down the rabbit hole.
Why would it be holographic? What is it about a holograph that would make it holographic?
One piece contains...
All the pieces of the puzzle. One individual piece that contains the whole,
It contains the whole.
like our DNA.
Yes.
That makes sense. So, there's an example of particle entanglement where they took 10 people, put them on an island, and gave them a test. None of them did good at it. Then they moved 5 people far, far away, like 1,000 miles away, and then they taught these 5 people that were still on the island all the answers to the test. And then they gave the people on the island a test again, and the people that were far, far away test again. And the people that were far, far away with no information tested better simply because the 5 people that they were originally with learned the information. And that's kind of how proof of particle entanglement. And wasn't there a guy that, who did you say was the professor that did that, or was that something else? The professor that introduced particle entanglement.
Tesla was big into it. But it was Einstein that really, I think, discovered it. He called it spookiness at a distance.
Well, that's
Which was-
adorable.
Yeah, that's really cute. children.
What do you do in spookiness at a distance?
Spookiness at a distance. Yes.
Really? Is that what he called it?
Yeah, that's what he called
Oh
it.
my God.
Wow, that's just.
And he really didn't like the theory at the time either.
Because he couldn't like wrap his head around
Right.
why it worked or what it did.
Right.
Because does it defy kind of quantum mechanics that it's not static? Or not really?
It kind of fits into the psychic field because you can't. It explains things that are mysterious, and we don't really understand how human consciousness works because quantum mechanics also states there was the particle slit experiment, which what they did was they shot through particles, and it would hit this backboard, and they would have a camera set up, and they'd be watching it, and just the act of watching the path of those particles made them change.
What?
Because they had a knowingness that they were being viewed. Because when
Yes.
they weren't in the room being viewed, the particles acted differently.
Yes, exactly.
Kind of like we discuss a whole lot more when the camera's not on us.
Yes.
Well,
There's so much more that we're not even revealing here.
Oh my God, there's.
don't worry. Eventually, when we finally get our act
Eventually
together, we'll
it'll-
have just a
yeah.
live cam that runs all the time, and you can see all the background nonsense.
Bite your tongue.
Right, like you missed anyway. All right, so that's particle entanglement. So, what was the point of talking about that?
So in theory, consciousness really controls a lot of things that we say.
Oh,
and
global consciousness. That's
Global
right.
consciousness, yes,
Global
we're going back-
consciousness.
we're going
It's
back
like,
to that,
wow.
yes.
Can we circle back around to what the point of that was? Why am I in this room?
So we
So,
were talking about 9/11
and the theory of global consciousness and how particle entanglement is a part of that, so that it can actually be a thing. That and I think we're recognizing that in trends. You see it in trends. I think that's sort of what boosts the trend, other than advertising. But I think there just seems to be waves of that. Like my mom used to say, I could predict what the next trend was because I'd be into like lighthouses and everything was lighthouses.
Pink is the next orange.
Exactly. I was not on board with neon.
Put that out into the universe.
Not on board with neon. That was not me.
Nope, I did the whole black thing in the 80s.
No. Yeah. So I mean, I'm
I
responsible.
was concert shirts, jeans, black. That's what I wore.
I did moccasin shoes. I
Yeah.
wore my moccasins.
That's very earthy of you.
Yeah.
Let me connect to the earth. Really
Did it?
worked. Yeah.
Well, what's that word for where you walk barefoot?
Yeah, and you feel the vibration. The
Yeah, you
vibrations
take the
of the earth.
vibrations of the earth
Yeah,
through your
and you
feet.
absorb it into your body.
I'm a big fan of barefoot. Is like all you see is me making weird noises. That's great. That's good. That's good cinema right there.